I'm the founder and EIC of Luna. I guess our little spiels, we're a online and print magazine as well as creative platform. So we make a bunch of magazines, we do online content, Instagram stuff. We used to do events when that was a thing. And yeah, we just get to work with a bunch of different creatives.
Cool, thanks so much. So tell us about yourself and what inspired you to make this magazine.
Yeah, I guess I don't know. I guess the long story short is when I was in college, when I was a sophomore, I just really wanted a way to talk to all these cool creatives that I was coming across. I always kind of thought of myself as a curator, and I say that lightly just because, everyone can be a curator. And I always felt like I had really good taste in a lot of things. And my friends would always come to me for music recommendations and whatnot. And I just wanted to be able to translate that into something bigger. And my roommate and I would just sit down and watch music videos and just think about how it'd be cool to just talk to these people. And so I came up with the idea of starting a magazine, which I had never been involved in that world before. I didn't really know anything about it. I read Local Wolves and that was it. And then I just kind of, I don't know, did it. I just figured out the logistics and ultimately wanted it to be something that could grow into a lot of other things. And from the beginning, I knew I wanted to start a magazine, but I wanted it to be something that could eventually grow into a bunch of other things as well.
Awesome. I also too love local wolves.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
best.
they're
Catherine,
great.
amazing.
So did you want to share the meaning of your guys' name?
Yeah, it's funny when I was trying to figure out the logistics, of course, the name is the biggest thing. And I knew I wanted to be something collective, like straight off the bat. I knew that because I just thought it had a nice ring to it. I played around for the longest time. I wanted to do something in French because I was like taking French and felt pretentious, but then decided not to. And like, I love the moon. I got something going on with her. I got a moon tattoo on me, and I just think, I don't know, she's everywhere all the time. I find that very comforting, and we all look up at the same one. And yeah, and I didn't want it to be like the Moon Collective. I love the word Luna. I feel like it just has a really nice feel to it. And yeah, then the Luna Collective, once I thought of that, the logo came pretty easily too, because I wanted to do some sort of like tarot card moon, because that was a big inspiration. So once it clicked, and I didn't have any second thoughts, I guess.
Love that. So moving on to events, what events have you guys hosted? I know you've done a few, obviously pre-COVID.
Yeah, so we started off doing backyard shows when I was in school at USC, because I was in a class where we had to do a production, like we had to do a concert. And so my friends and I put together a backyard show, which was really fun. So we did a couple of house shows. But then towards the end, I think we had done three. I was like, I want to take this to the next level. Like, I really enjoy doing this, but there's a lot of limitations. And I was really trying to get away with like the move from the like DIY zine name to like, no, this is like more of a formal publication. I'm not just like some kid doing this. So then we started doing venues. I think the first one we did was actually, it's not a thing anymore, but this place in Chinatown. And from the events from the beginning, I wanted to be more than just like a concert. Like, I wanted to be able to bring in other elements. So we would have like merch, and we would have like prints on the wall and little like arts and craft tables. And we also would collaborate with friends. We did something with Sleaze Hog, which is like a production company. And then we did an art show with Honeymoon Supply, which curates art. And so that was more of like an art show, but we still had music. So I always wanted to have a lot of flexibility with them, because the whole point of Luna is it's more than one thing. It's for people that like music and visual arts. So I wanted to translate that into events and make it like truly an experience. When someone pulls up, they're coming for more than just seeing a show. And then our last event was right before COVID, actually, at the Resident, which is like a bar and venue in LA, for those that know, for my friend Madeline Mai. We took on kind of like the promoter role, which was cool because we had never been in that position. It was definitely more of a formal show. Oh my gosh, Madeline's here. Oh, shout out to Madeline.
That's awesome. So unfortunate that like COVID happened because those events sound really fun.
We had a show for the end of April, and it obviously all got canceled like very,
Yeah.
very fast.
Oh, that sucks.
But that's okay. We adapt.
Yeah. So how do you guys come up with the inspiration for your guys' events, or how did you, I guess?
Yeah, so it would really depend on if we were doing something if it was a collaboration with someone else or if it was just me kind of curating the artists. So for our art show that we had at the beginning of last year, Helene and I knew she runs our honeymoon supply. We knew we wanted to do something around the theme of like dreams and that kind of vibe. So we ran with that. And that was definitely a themed curated event. Whereas the events before, it really would depend on the artists that we were booking in the venue. A lot of the venues that we got to work with, like, kind of already had a feel to them. So we would decorate in terms of like bringing balloons and put up prints and stuff. But what I liked about working with venues as opposed to house shows is they already were bringing a theme and vibe. So we always tried to have a diverse lineup, like not just booking straight white men. And I think with that, and a lot of the artists that we worked with, like either knew or had previously worked with, or the people we were working with had a personal relationship. So we were also able to get their opinion on it too. Madeline's a good example for her show. It was close to Valentine's Day and it was her release show. So we tied in that element as well. So take it event by event. If we have a publication release as well, we try to tie that in too. But a lot of like flexibility and freedom with it too.
Awesome. So what are the first steps you take when like planning an event?
First things first is definitely all the logistical stuff because that is actually a lot harder to nail down than it seems. Getting a venue and a date that works between your whole lineup is not that easy, especially if you're working with like 3 to 4 groups. So securing venues, securing the deal that you're going to have, whether it's a ticket split, a flat rate, like all the money stuff, which I did not know that much about getting into it and kind of had to learn the hard way. I think is really worth putting in the extra time to figure that out and really making sure that you and whoever you're hosting the event at are on the same page for everything. So getting that settled, booking your talent, figuring out what the rates are for your talent. Are they taking a ticket split or a cut? Are they doing a flat rate? How long are they playing? Who also the gear part, that was something I didn't think about. You have to coordinate like if the venue doesn't have all the gear, like who's bringing what, can the different artists share gear, like if one artist is bringing drums, like do all 3 of them need to bring drums, like stuff like that. Then we would also include like vendors as well, so we'd see what vendors are available, who do we want to have, how much space do they have, does the venue have a table for them, do they have wall space, if we're having visual artists to put up their stuff, how can they hang stuff on the wall, are they allowed to use tape, like all these little things you have to think about. So once you book the talent, you've booked the other people at the event, then just the promotional assets and making sure that ideally everyone's doing their part as well in promoting it. Oh, also figuring out ticket pricing, that's important because you want to make it accessible, especially like with our audience. We're wanting it to be on the cheaper end, but obviously like everyone needs to get paid. And yeah, I think those are the main steps. A lot of things always end up coming up at the end, last minute. Also a lot of decoration stuff. I always like bringing in that flair to it. And if you're working with someone else, figuring out like who's doing what. If the venue has someone at the door, do you need to provide someone at the door? How are you going to handle the money afterwards? What happens once the show ends? I also learned that the hard way. Like I kind of assumed like that was all the work was planning and before it, but then it's like, okay, just because what happens when you pull up to the event and now the event is over and everyone's going home? Like, what are those steps too? So you got to think like before, during, and after.
Damn, that's a lot. Someone asked in the comments, how do you promote events?
So our main channel is definitely Instagram. We do newsletters as well, but really would push on Instagram for people that don't follow. Yeah. So then the individuals that are part of the event as well, like we never had like a contract or something like, hey, if you're on this show, we expect you to promote. But that's really going to be the main way you get people outside of your audience is having the other people that are on the show promote it, as well as the venue. A lot of venues also offer some sort of like marketing support. Also, ironically enough, Facebook events is like a pop-in way to promote your events. Like, we never spent money on ads or anything like that, but back when events were a thing, like recommended events for you, Facebook events was a huge thing. That's how I would find events a lot of times too. Also, if it was just because we are LA based, and my college was near a lot of these venues, like we would sometimes do physical flyering, bringing it back old school, which could be really helpful too. So, and that would definitely target people outside of our normal audience.
That's awesome. Okay, so moving to publication design, what does the process of designing an issue look like for you guys?
Yeah, it's definitely changed for the better, because when I was first starting it, like I had no experience with InDesign or any of that. So it was a lot of figuring stuff out, but over time we've definitely gotten kind of our foundation and our layout, and we know what we're looking to in terms of design. So while we don't have set templates, we do have set guidelines, which makes things a lot easier. So like step one, I make the InDesign file. Now what I do is I will literally copy the last issue, wipe out most of the content, but keep all like the guidelines and key parts that we do keep. And from there, it's definitely finding a balance between, yeah, sticking to like our aesthetic and the vibe and making sure things are like clean cut, but also still making sure it's creative and fun and not the same designs as before. And that's always been, I think we've found that balance, because before it was like, oh, this is so exciting. Like we want to try all these different design elements and all these new styles and stuff. And then all of a sudden it's like, whoa, like this needs to be cohesive. But then I also always want to be careful where it's not looking like we just took a template and copy and pasted it throughout all these different spreads. And we are bringing something new to it and are kind of keeping up with what's in and how my personal tastes have changed. So yeah, I guess it's become a lot different in a better way, but I actually have a feeling that will change in the next issue or two, because I also like changing things up and finding that balance. But now I do also have some designers that I work with as well. So I kind of have a deck for them for guidelines, and then I'll kind of put everything together and tweak everything so that it's cohesive and everything makes sense together as an individual spread, but also in the magazine altogether, so that it keeps things fresh, interesting, and you're not reading like 8 articles back to back. You're not reading 8 photo spreads back to back. There's a mix of everything.
Awesome. Do you have any advice for someone wanting to design their first magazine but may not have a lot of experience using like Adobe programs, or how exactly they don't like really know how to go about it?
Yeah, like that was me. So do not fear. Like when I say the first time I'd ever opened up InDesign was when I was designing the first issue of the magazine. Like, I mean that. Same with like Illustrator. I knew Photoshop a little bit, but like I was starting at ground zero. That I wish that I could say like, oh, I watched like tutorials and all this stuff. I didn't, because I don't know. But look, I think the biggest advice is looking to other publications, not in the sense to copy what they're doing, but just to spark something. And that's something that I've tried to get better about, because like I said before, I only really read Local Wolves. And our publication designs, even at the beginning, are so different than theirs, but for some reason that would just help me get a sense. So look to other publications, but don't copy. It should spark something in you. Also, I think Instagram and now TikTok are great resources of just design layouts outside of publications that you can still apply to your publications. And yeah, and there's nothing wrong with like looking up tutorials. Like sometimes InDesign is fucking stupid, you know, like, and that's not a you thing. So definitely have references, look to other people, and don't be afraid to ask for help and show it to your friends, even if they're not graphic design people. In some ways, I think there's a benefit to that, because chances are most of your audience isn't going to be huge graphic designers. So it's nice to get input on those that don't know much about it and are just simply viewers. And I think I had a slight advantage of that at the beginning too, because I wasn't thinking about like, oh, like this needs to be spaced out, this, like it was more like, oh, this looks good. I don't know anything about graphic design, but I like how this looks, so I'm gonna translate that into my publication.
Awesome. Yeah, I think a really reassuring thing too with like anything Adobe is like the learning curve is so steep. Like you start at zero and then it immediate like once it clicks, like everything just clicks, which is really nice. And obviously like you clearly have an eye for pretty things, so that kind of helps too.
Yeah, what I tell people is like, I'm not like a graphic designer. Like I still struggle calling myself that, even though I do graphic design, because I have been around people and work with people that like are legitimate graphic designers and like literally have a design degree. And it's funny when I hear from them because it's still the same boat. It's trial and error.
Yeah.
Um, and it's important to, as much as you will learn all these things and you will find all these guidelines, to always take it with a grain of salt and still be creative and have fun with it.
Yeah, exactly. Awesome. So how does the look of your magazine change each theme?
Whew. Well, so there was a big shift from starting with our 10th issue. So our first through ninth issue, I'd say our first through fourth issue, like I was doing everything by myself. Like, girl has no graphic design experience. And then I started getting some help, and there are some small tweaks, but at that point it was in the let's try everything phase. So then by the eighth or ninth issue, we kind of had some cohesive things going on. Always had cohesive font in certain styles, but then the 10th issue, we did like a total rehaul on like the cover, the font, contents, closer, all that jazz. And since that, that definitely has helped me get a more like cleaner sense of our design elements and it be more cohesive. So in terms of how it changes each issue, we do have a theme, but the theme is just like a specific spread. It's not like the entire magazine. And like through the articles, we try to touch back on that. But since we are like a very visual based magazine, all of our photos are film. I usually tell the designers, and whenever I design a spread, it really is based around the photos, which makes it a lot more fun, in my opinion, and a lot easier because rather than having like some really strict guidelines and trying to make the photos work for those guidelines, it's more like, okay, here's like some basic things like font, but the photo should always be the primary focus, because yeah, I like to think people are reading the articles, but for the most part when people are skimming through, or what's like catching people's attention is the photos and the visual side of it. So those always remain the focus, and everything kind of goes around those.
Yeah, definitely. So moving over to establishing a mission, what is Luna's mission and what do you guys stand for?
I guess, I mean, super broad. Like our little tagline, and it's similar to Unpublished actually, is fueled by creatives for creatives. And it's in the sense of like, we're all on the same page, we're on the same boat. Like, I think that we're part of this cool new generation of creatives that like everyone's trying to uplift each other. So, like, my personal philosophy, like in life, is literally just like, if you work hard and are a good person, like things will work out. So the way I translate that to Luna is like, if you're talented and I think you're a good person, like I want to be able to like put you on. Like, going back to the first question of like why I started Luna, really was like, yeah, if like you're dope, like I think everyone should know about you. So now that we've evolved, I, as much as it's like cool that we get to work with bigger talent and have more opportunities, the core is still to provide an opportunity for developing creatives, as a place to like have a community where they can find inspiration and seek advice, but also have an opportunity to be published and featured and encouraged to move forward. And Rebecca, I know we've kind of talked about this, for some people, like all they need is like just one sense of like validation when you're starting out. And so to be able to be that platform in any regard, is definitely a huge core value of us.
That's awesome. And since you guys have been around for a really long time, how do you guys actively maintain that mission?
Definitely keeping an open communication with our community. And like, I think that's a really important thing in general. Like, we wouldn't be anywhere without our community. So always keeping that open dialogue and keeping an open eye and ear to like what's happening in general and how we're changing, how our audience is changing, and how everything's changing. Like, we're I'm older than when I started this. Like, some of our audience has grown as well, and we are shifting from, we're not just working with like brand new creatives, like we are starting to work with more established and like very established creatives too. So it's finding that balance of being able to like provide opportunities and content for everyone essentially, and just keeping not getting stuck in one idea, like always being flexible. And like it's definitely changed from when I first started it, and I think that's a good thing. The whole point, you know, you can have your goals and your plans, and each year kind of make a deck of the whole year, and if half of that doesn't work out, that's okay. And if half of, you know, because the other half did. And I think this past year is a great example of just being flexible and being able to adapt and overcome. And if you are just confident in the work that you're doing, then I think that that speaks for itself.
That's awesome. So when it comes to like everything that you just mentioned, like what impression do you want people to have when they look at Luna? Like what's the first thing you want them to take away, whether it's your magazine or your website?
Oh gosh. Wow, the concept of like being perceived. I guess I want people to see it as, you know, I do want people to take us seriously, but I don't want that ever to be like an intimidation thing. And, you know, as much as numbers are important and growing because that allows you to have more opportunities, like Luna's still like very much the same from the beginning. Like it's still me. Like I'm on the other side of the email and Instagram and stuff. So I hope when people come to our page, like they are impressed by our content and the people that we get to work with. But I also hope they get the sense that we're accessible and we're here for the community. Where I don't, while I do look to like Paper Magazine and Complex and all these things, like I always like having that close connection and relationship with our followers, and I don't ever want to lose that, and I don't want it to feel like we're detached or like above. And I've definitely tried to find a balance of like, you know, it's not my personal account, I never really show face on the account. Like my name is mentioned once in the magazine, it's not on the website or anything, but I also want to make it clear like it's still a very personal thing. We're not some like giant corporation, so I hope people can get a sense of both like, oh, this is cool, this is like a legit platform that's doing like really cool stuff, working with cool people, love their content, but they also still have that sense of being able to reach out and being able to get in touch.
I think you guys are really successful in that. I know that when we were first finding kind of like our voice, we looked to you guys a little bit because I know you guys like kind of transitioned from your original print was like you guys just had this like transition of from your first few issues to what you guys have now. And I think you guys do a really great job of being very personalized, but also take professional, which is great.
Thank you. I really appreciate
that. Yeah. So moving on to hosting interviews, how do you guys go about contacting someone for an interview?
So I prefer to do everything via email. I know like sliding the DMs is a popular thing, but I personally am just not a fan of that. So depending on who it is, I will reach out to their publicist or manager or them individually. And now we include our press kit. Like literally at the beginning, it was just like, hey, like, do you want to do an interview with us? But now it's like definitely a lot more formal, and we include more information on us. I always stress flexibility too. Like before this past year, but especially this past year, like I don't include any dates or anything like that. Like I always try to keep an open timeline. And for the magazine, we do pretty much all of our interviews. Like, well, they used to be in person when they were mostly LA based, but over the phone or Zoom now. And our website features, it's kind of a mix. Sometimes it is over email, sometimes over call and stuff. But I think it's important to know just like pushing flexibility, because I think sometimes people are interested in doing features, but A, maybe they like literally hate doing phone interviews, or B, like you might be reaching out at kind of a chaotic time. So I always try to push that. Also, if you don't get a response, like just follow up. Like if there's one thing I've learned, and I wish someone taught me this in school, like the power of the follow-up email. Like I feel like no one tells you that. No one really tells you email etiquette in general. But there are so many opportunities that we would not have had I just like not followed up. It's not annoying. So yeah, that's kind of our general procedure. Sometimes if I can't find their email, I do slide in the DMs, but just asking for email. And in general, anytime someone reaches out to us, if it's vice versa for an interview or for a feature, I always try to lead to via email as well.
Awesome. So what do you personally do to prep for an interview when you're interviewing someone?
I try to do a lot of research, and I pretty much try to read every interview they've done in the past year, just because. I mean, this is when it's like a formal over the phone one. If it's via email, if it's just like Q&A, like I'll look at some recent press just because I don't want to ask like the same thing and I want to like get a sense of where they're at, like ask about current projects. But yeah, if it's over the phone or over Zoom or whatever, like I try to really do my research because like I don't want to waste their time. I don't want to ask them questions that they've been asked before and that they've answered. And I would rather be able to touch on something new. A big point of Luna is it's like original new content. So I don't need to have a conversation about something that they did with Ones to Watch last month. I would rather use that information to like base my questions and move forward from that. And I will say it's been like very rewarding when I talk, especially now since we're working with people that like do a lot of press. It's really rewarding when they say like, hey, like I really appreciate your questions. They're very thoughtful. Like I can tell you did your research, and they can. Like, if they're media trained, they will be nice, but people can tell if you've done their research, if you've done your research or not. So that's like my biggest tip too. Just do your research. Don't ask stupid questions and try to ask open-ended questions too. Like I feel like there's nothing worse than an interview that is very like, do you like this? Yes. Like, you know what I mean? Like you want it to be a conversation. Also, in terms of like during the interview itself, I always try to frame it as more of a conversation. Just once again, if you're doing something with someone that does a lot of press, like it's just nice to have it be a little bit more low key, less pressure, and for them to feel more comfortable. And I think I'll have my set of questions, but half the time if we go off of that, that's better because that shows that they're getting comfortable, and sometimes you might get information that you wouldn't have asked or you wouldn't have known to ask for.
That's really good advice. Did you guys do in-person interviews before COVID?
Yeah, so at the beginning, most of our features were LA based just because like did not have the network to find photographers outside of LA or set up anything. So for a while they were all in person, and then in general, if they are LA based, try to do them in person. But that's all on pause right now, of course.
Yeah.
So over the phone and Zoom.
So what do you miss most about the in-person ones then?
I think they flowed a lot better. They would a lot of times last a lot longer, and I feel a lot more connected to those people. Just in general, I feel a lot more closer to the people we worked with at the beginning, just because like I really appreciate them like being part of a magazine. We didn't have a lot to show for it. And yeah, conversations were a lot, I don't know, more in depth. And that's not to say like now, like they're all dry or anything like that, but I feel like when you're in person, you just can vibe off of each other better. And it's not as same over the phone. I mean, like I'm a people person, like phone and Zoom's totally fine, but I don't know, in person, you get coffee, you get comfy, and you chat.
That's awesome. I hope one day we can get back to a place where Zoom interviews aren't really a thing anymore and that. So we have a question from the comments asking, how do you guys digitalize interviews from Zoom and by phone?
So when it's over phone, yeah, I record it like just what's it called? Not voice note, but whatever it is on your phone. And tip for that, always go on airplane mode, because if you get a call, it'll stop recording and you won't know. Yeah, and over Zoom, record it. We use a transcriber. I used to, which is like looking back, I was so crazy and stupid. I used to like hand transcribe, like listen through and like do it. I don't know why I did that. Like I like saying it, I'm like, oh, that's embarrassing. But yeah, now I use like a little online feature or whatever, but I do go back. I mean, they're not perfect, so it does take a little bit of time. And now if a writer has already picked up the feature, I'll let them kind of edit it through just to save everyone's time. So yeah, that's how we digitalize it.
And then do you have any advice for a magazine wanting to interview someone maybe with like a bigger following, but they don't really know like if the person will respond or like how exactly how exactly they should go about it?
Yeah, definitely just go about it in the most professional way. Like the whole fake it till you make it thing is very real. I still to this day, I'm like, gosh, like I'm really pranking all these people. They're thinking that we're like legit. And I'm just some kid. Yeah, just come across as professional as possible. Make sure you're reaching out to the appropriate person. Chances are, if you are working with a higher person, your point of contact should be their publicist or manager. My policy is kind of you email. I try to send like the beginning of the week. I'll follow up after 1 week, and I don't. That's it. Like if they don't reply after the one follow up, like I'm not going to keep hassling them. Don't take it personally if people don't respond. That's just how it is. These people are busy and they do have to allocate their time how they can, I guess. But yeah, come across professional, include as much information as you can, and try to emphasize like what's in it for them. Like, yeah, it's obvious that if you're a smaller publication, like this helps you, but what's in it for this bigger artist? Why would they want to take their time to work with you and do that?
Awesome. I was gonna say something. I totally forgot what I was gonna
You're good.
say. But anyways, I guess we'll move on from that. So moving on to time management. How do you balance school? I guess prior now that you've graduated,
Oh, I'm
congratulations.
back in school. Don't worry.
Oh, you still are? Oh, awesome. At USC still?
Yeah, I'm in a graduate program.
Oh, congrats.
Thank you.
Okay, well, I guess then, how do you balance school, personal life, and the magazine? I know that's something that we all need.
Yeah, definitely was a struggle. And my junior year and the first semester of my senior year was really, really crazy. So I started Luna the second semester of my sophomore year, and like that semester was like I thought it was crazy, but like little did I know. Because I also always worked in college as well. I will say, like, I hate to admit it, but like my class time, half the time I would use to work on Luna stuff. Like, I mean, we're just being honest here. It's not like I'm like fully engaged half the time. And I sometimes would see some of my classes as like a study hall or like a work period. I'm like a super anxiety ridden person. So I'm someone like I can't push things off. I do things super like I'm very on top of things and deadlines, and that translates in school. And not because I'm some like smart alecky annoying student, but like I'm the type of kid like when I get the syllabus, I will try to do any assignments ahead of time. Like if an essay is not due for another 2 months, like I will try to do it the first week of school just so I don't have to think about it because I have way more important things in my life than school. And I know that seems super crazy and hard, but if you get into that habit, it will just make such a huge difference if you really try to block school and keep on top of that because that I mean when you have a publication and stuff is coming up every single day, whereas school, like, okay, at least you can put that to the side. That being said, like school is always first. I mean, yeah, there were sometimes I would skip class for interviews and photo shoots. I literally missed like the first day of my senior year for a cover shoot because it was like, I'm sorry, like so I wish I had a better answer, but school should always be first, but find a way to work in your favor. If there are any times that you can turn your class assignments into your public, like work with your career, like that's awesome. I was a public relations and music industry major and minor. So sometimes I would be able to translate what I was doing. Like I mentioned earlier, I took a class where we had to throw a concert. So I was like, okay, cool. Like I can do that through Luna. So try to curate it to what you're doing. Also, like if you work, like I worked in college, I work now, like trying to find that balance. I try to set boundaries in terms of like I do not answer any emails after 10 p.m. or I don't really do any work after 10 p.m. Which I know for college kids is like what? Like that's when it's time to get started. What are you saying? But you just no, don't do it. Get in a better sleeping habit. I'd rather wake up early or like just prioritize, time management. Also, if you really care about something, you just make it work. Like I know that's like a stupid answer, but like for real, if you care about something, you'll make it work into your schedule.
Definitely. So we have a comment asking, how do you set boundaries in your life when it comes to Luna? Obviously, you founded it and it's your baby, but sometimes but a girl has to take breaks sometimes. So how do you know when to
Yeah.
step away?
Yeah, it's not been easy. And it's something that I've really tried to work on the past year and a couple months in particular, just because I feel like Luna and myself have been going at like a really crazy pace for a really long time. And I'm like very excited for things. And I'm someone like I have a lot of ideas and it's cool that I'm able to bring them to life. But then sometimes it's like, whoa, like I literally work like from the moment I wake up to like go to sleep. This isn't right. So it's making the time for other things and treating leisure time and fun things as great a value as everything else. And like when you look to like successful people, like not I'm not trying to be like one of those self-help books, but when you look to these like a lot of successful people, like they'll throw out bullshit stuff like, oh, they wake up at like 5 a.m. or they do this and this. Is like, no, what it really boils down to is the work hard, play hard balance. Like you are going to be more successful in your professional life if you have a life outside of that, and you do find time to like unwind and chill and do other things. Like even when I was like in school, like working and would have school and did this and that, like I'd still go out, I'd still hang out, I'd still do things because I think that's just as important as everything else. So I guess you have to treat the non-work time just as important as work time. You definitely have to make sometimes like if you really need to get shit done, like that's gonna affect that. But don't don't keep going like 20 miles an hour. Like you gotta slow down sometimes and do take care of yourself. Like self-care is like I know our generation is very into self-care, but for real, like you're gonna get burnout and you're not gonna want to do anything if you don't watch out.
So in order to prevent that burnout, how do you like keep organized? Like what are some tools that you use for yourself or even for your team to keep that organization?
Yeah, I definitely try to do leave a lot of time for stuff. In terms of like our team, like I very rarely try to ask for things last minute. Like we all have lives, and I just feel like I'm not here to like add stress to any of my staff members' lives. Like the whole point, I hope when they're working with Luna is like to gain experience and because they're interested in something. I hope it's I don't want it to ever be something stressful. So I always give people plenty of time to do everything. I always have like a fake deadline that I tell people for the magazine and people that we work with for stuff. And that's way ahead of like my actual deadline because I don't want to stress them out. I don't want to stress myself out. Want to like emphasize flexibility. Um, and then for myself, like it's a hard lesson I've had to learn, but like sometimes like stuff doesn't work out, or sometimes like it's not on the timeline that you think it was gonna be. But like it's okay. It's not the end of the world. Like I'm not Paper Magazine. You're not Paper, so it's okay. Like if you really wanted your magazine out this day and like it's stressing you out, stressing everyone out, like just move it back. What's gonna happen? Like it's not the end of the world with some of this stuff. And uh, uh, manager that I really look to, like his thing, he reps a couple artists, and his thing was like, it's not brain surgery what we're doing. Like it's okay to be stressed, but like when you work in music and entertainment, of course there's gonna be like stressful things and stuff that has to get done. But on the end of the day, like it should be fun. And if you're stressed out all the time, then you gotta like step back and reevaluate what you're doing because it should all be for funsies and take things seriously, but also be flexible and not be so hard on yourself or the people you work with. And going back to kind of the previous question, like allowing that balance. And if you're having like a hard, long day and you still have a lot of shit to do, like sometimes it is better to just go to sleep early, like call it a day and hit the ground running the next day.
Yeah, definitely. Someone in the comments asked, do you have an executive team or what does your team look like? And then also follow up, how do you manage your team and are there any like specific tools you use?
Yeah, so that's a good question because it's changing right now. I actually just earlier sent out emails for our new team because we were taking applications the past month. So before this, pre like today, what's going to change is pretty much just me. I have a website manager, my friend Jonathan, and he came on board in the summer. So he sets up or he drafts all the features on the website, which is helpful to me. And then we have about 10 or 12 writers for the website and the magazine, and three to five graphic designers that work on spread design. Sometimes we'll do graphic stuff for socials. So pretty like small in that regard. Like everything else, like it's me. Like I don't have like a publicity person or a social media person or any of that. It's just like the graphics people, the writers people, our website manager, and myself. Which has been fun, but like I'm losing my mind every day. So now we are gonna have an executive team, and I'm super, super excited for it. We're hiring an assistant editor, which I'm super excited for, and a copy editor, which I don't know why I haven't had until now. So that will be our executive team. And in terms of managing the team, it's kind of going back to what I was saying with having an audience. Like I try to keep a really open line of communication, and yeah, it's finding that balance of like professionalism, but like I want my writers and my staff members to be able to talk to me and pitch any ideas and feel comfortable talking to me about stuff. And going back to the previous question, like not stressing anyone out, like having flexibility, keeping it professional, and like yes, there are deadlines, but life happens, shit happens. So never being too over the top with any of that. I see the next question about delegating stuff. Yeah, so how we work for articles for the website and the magazine is like we have kind of a Google sheet of everything, and everyone has access to it. And anytime I add something, I will post in our Slack, and it's kind of first come first serve. For the graphics, I'll reach out to some of our more like higher up designers first, so they get first pick, and then same deal, I'll send kind of the spreads for everyone else to pick from. So sometimes if I think someone is better like fit for something, then sure, like some of our graphic designers like prefer spread design, some of them prefer social stuff, so I will reach out to them individually and they can pick from there. I also should I just like keep answering the question?
Yeah, you can
Yeah.
answer.
I'm like it's all coming at once. I'm seeing it.
Yeah, you can answer.
Do you pay your creators and team? If so, how are you able to fund your magazine and be able to distribute a stipend? So we pay the photographers for the editorial features for the magazines, which I realize that's a mouthful. So basically, like the original content in the magazine, like those photos, like we pay the photographers because like you have to, because we're doing like formal photo shoots with like professionals. We don't currently pay our writers or graphic designers full transparency. It's not like I would definitely like that to change, but like I'm sure y'all are on the same page of like DIY. But my plan this year is to definitely change that. Like I'm very against unpaid labor, which going back to like why I was saying earlier, like, oh, I want to keep it like low key, like, stress because yeah, I'm not paying these people. So I don't want to be like, you need to get this to me tomorrow. It's like, no, like, we'll have deadlines, but want it to be a little bit more casual. In terms of money, we do make money from playlisting. So if you are any sort of website curator, magazine, or whatever, I highly recommend looking into that because it's not free money in the sense of like it takes your time, but it is easy money, and that has made a huge difference for us. A good part of our budget comes from Submit Hub. We do make a little bit of money from ads from our website, not a whole lot because I don't like having an annoying amount of ads. We are going to start charging for our digital issues. We haven't in the past. They were always free. We just charge for the print copies, and we make a little bit of money from the print copies, but I try to keep it down. So between those different avenues, it kind of adds up. And now that we've gotten more into merch, that has also provided some funding. So most of the money goes into the budget for the magazine because that's very expensive because of the production for the shoots and stuff. And yeah, moving forward, anything after that will be going to our graphics and our writers and beefing up production.
Awesome. So going off of merch, how do you guys come up with inspiration with merch? I know you guys recently came out with some pretty cool merch that you made. That's going to be featured in our next issue. So stay tuned for that.
Yes.
But yeah, how do you guys come up with the idea and how do you actually make it?
Yeah, so like the first line that we did was a little bit over a year ago, and it's like kind of like our just basic like Luna text merch and moon merch, just because I like that designs. But the past 2 runs and the runs that we're working on now, I don't know, like, once again, I'm not a graphic designer, and so the way the process has worked is I'll kind of come up with like some ideas, just I don't know, from my head. Literally, like, I wish I had a better answer. I just come up with the ideas, and I will work with a friend or a graphic designer and be like, hey, this is my idea, can you like bring it to life? Like, and I'll kind of, sometimes I'll make like a shitty version on Photoshop and be like, this but better. And through the designs, like, I like it to be something that's a little bit more open-ended. One of the goals through our merch is to be able to tap into an audience like beyond Luna, and I want it to be not super Luna branded in that sense. Like, I want it to be something that like people would wear, and in like a non-narcissistic way. It's kind of like, oh, that's cool, like I would wear it. So I try to keep that mindset and just get some input from friends as well, and keep things accessible in the sense of it's not targeted to one specific person, whether it be like gender or style or anything like that. I want it to be something that's fun, something that's stylish, but wearable, and not, I don't want people to see the sweatshirt and be like, oh, that's like from the Luna Collective. It's like, oh, that's a really cool hoodie. Oh, wow, it's like, that's from Luna. Like, that's cool. So I wish I had a better answer, but I don't know. I write down like phrases and quotes that I like, and I'll pull from that. Like in our last line, we did like choose kindness, or like it's cool to be kind. Like, I just have a list of random verbiage, so sometimes we'll pull from that.
Yeah, I really loved seeing the crew next you guys did, and also like the person that did your guys' ad. I don't know if you saw it already or not, but I'm really excited to
I
have that
did,
in the
yeah.
print. Yeah, I was like obsessed with it. Right. Hopefully you were as obsessed
Yes,
as I was, but I was
yeah,
like,
that's
oh my
great.
gosh, this is perfect. Love it so much. Um,
Yeah, I'm very excited.
yeah. So how did you guys get your merch made, and like what was that process of, like, did you guys have a vendor or all of that stuff, you know?
Yeah, so we use a local woman in Glendale. Her name is Tracy. Shout out my girl Tracy. And she's just kind of like an independent vendor. And my friend who was doing merchandise before over the summer and who helped with our first line in the fall, had kind of found her and worked with her. And we liked working with her. And she is awesome. I pretty much come with her with the design. I know what she stocks, like what hoodies and stuff, so I'll kind of get a sense of the colors, and she handles like getting it, the embroidery, like we do custom tags, so she handles that as well. I think the benefit to using her, I mean, one, the thing that I struggle the most with the merch stuff for the longest time is like, I didn't want to contribute to like like I didn't want to go like the fast fashion route and the like, nothing wrong with Printful or all those like print on demands, but I wasn't in love with that idea. And so um while the stuff that we print on right now isn't like thrifted or sustainable stuff, which I would like to get to, she is local. Like, I'm not contributing to like Jeff Bezos' pocket. And I think she really appreciates our business, and I like working with her. It's literally just like her and her little team, and that's important to me. And it's LA based, and I get to, like, I still ship out everything, and I think it still has that personal touch. So if you are looking into merch, I recommend like really trying to find like your person. Like, having your person really makes a difference, because she also, now that we've worked together a couple times, like will kind of go the extra mile to like make things work, or like get me good deals and stuff like that. It is a lot of work at first, but once you find your person, like, you're sold.
That's awesome. So, do you have any advice for someone or a magazine wanting to make merch, like something that you wish you knew before you actually made it?
Yeah, like definitely calculate your margins. And it's something that has been hard for me to get better at the business end, because I want like everything to be accessible, and that's why our digital issues of the magazine were free for so long. And when we were doing the first fall line in September, the friend that I was working on with, he really was pushing us to price it higher than I'd wanted to, and I kept thinking like, no, like, who's going to pay this amount for like a sweatshirt. And he really speaked up about like, you got to like train your audience. And if you're selling something that's of quality, you need to be training them. Like, there's nothing wrong with charging that amount. And I'm not saying like charge like $100 for like a sweatshirt that's worth $20. But be comfortable with like pricing your stuff what is appropriate, and figure like it's finding that balance of what you think your audience is going to pay. Like, most of our audience is younger, so like I'm not going to pay $90 for a sweatshirt either. But would I pay 40? Like, yeah, I would. um so figure out like your pricing, and take into account like, are you paying a designer to come up with the merch? Like, is it going to be taking time out of your day to ship everything out? Like, are you running ads? Who like, are you doing like a photo shoot for it, for the marketing and stuff like that? Keep all of those in mind, so it's more than just like what it costs to produce the item. There are other factors that are going to go in to producing the line itself. um and yeah, and come up with like, have fun with the design, like come up with something in a non-narcissistic way, like come up with something that you want, like something that you like. Because if you are like confident in it, and if people like feel that, like, I, not in a cocky way, but like, I love our merch, I think our merch is so much fun, and people like seeing that, and I think people are more likely to fuck with something that you're doing, that you're like, yeah, like this is my sweatshirt, like I made it, it's fucking dope, and they're like, okay, for sure, like I will. So just make something that you're proud of, and yeah, push it, and um don't be afraid to mark things up, and know your worth.
Definitely, yeah. We are really big fans of your guys' merch as well. So that's all the questions we have for you today. If anybody else wants to ask any questions in the comments, now would be the time to do so. But thank you so much, Sophie, for sitting down and
Thank
joining our
you.
panel.
Literally always my pleasure.
I think this was even super helpful for us. Like,
Of
you
course.
had great insights.
Oh, well, you guys have great insights too. I mean, Rebecca, I know we've talked about, like, you really have inspired me to like get my shit together with the staff end of stuff. Like, when we talked, what was it, like December, November, and I was like, oh, she's got like a formal ass staff. Like, I need to stop doing this by myself. I'm psycho. And you're like, yeah, you are psycho. Like, okay.
Delegate, you know, and not like put on the weight, because I know how much time like I can handle and everything.
Yeah, you get it.
Someone also asked, how did you guys get the word out about your magazine when you first released your first issue?
Yeah, this is a really good question. It is really hard when you first start out, when you have like nothing to show to anyone, you know, and that's why like I'm very, very appreciative to the people that were in the first issue, because there was no like, hey, look to our past issues, or like look to our website. It's like, I am nobody. This is an idea I have. Are you interested in running with it? And so with that being said, I'm really lucky that the first batch of people that we worked with did, like, some of them did have a bit of a following, and like did help promote and stuff. And it's not like overnight we like popped off or anything like that, but that was kind of built in marketing and promotion. It wasn't just a submission based thing, like it was actual talent, and they were able to push it. Also, like, my friends are amazing. All my friends have been like very, very supportive in Luna, and always share what we're doing. And I would hope the same for like everyone and their friends. And to be honest, I didn't think about that end of that much. I just was thinking about moving forward in the next step. In a weird way, the promotion aspect has always been the last thought, because my mindset has been like, if the content is there, then you know, it speaks for itself, and that'll push itself. So like, we never ran ads or anything like that. And the first issue did exactly that. Like, the content pushed itself, and we just moved on to the next issue, and that was that. So don't stress about that as much. Like, it's good to think about that, but once again, and I know I've said this before, like, if you're confident in your content and you've like really put in the work, then that in itself does a lot of work for you.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for
Hey, thank you. Literally my pleasure. Thank you to everyone that came, and for your questions.